Warrior Mutiny. It's not me, it's all your fault. This is a talk about the blamers and the shamers part. And for those of you who've been, we have been, over this year, been looking at Martha Sweezy's Shame Cycle, which I took from her book that was published in September, and there's a talk on my website, and Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred on YouTube also talks about it. She's also gone through it, so I recommend that. But I created this diagram, and there's some over there if you want to have a look at it. I'm going to go through that in a little minute. In this talk, I am not focusing on the fierce self energy, speaking for a part, confidence with clarity, with courage, standing up for something in justice, setting a boundary where someone's transgressed. You know, self can be all warm and fluffy and connected and present and open-hearted, but also self can be really clear and courageous. So I'm not talking about that. And today also I'm not talking about that not everything comes down to shame, because everything doesn't come down to shame. It could be fear, it could be powerlessness, power imbalances, structural inequality. I'm just not talking about this today. And I particularly also wanted to shout out to all those other neurodivergent folk, of which I consider myself one, that there's hardware and software, and so neurology, and sometimes it's not when I have a firefighter that comes out to blame and shame another, it's actually my software firefighter, but it's because my hardware has become overwhelmed. I'm seeing some nodding. So wonderful Candice Christensen and Meg Martinez Detamanti have created this, and I'm going to pass it round. And they talk about hardware and software. But things like meltdowns, it's like, it could be I'm just really hot and my bucket is overloaded and my kids are making a lot of noise and I'm just going up, and it's like, can you remember the wafer thin mint? It's like, it's the last thing and it's the explosion. Or my rejection sensitivity, that's part of my hardwiring. That's what when someone might look at me in a funny way, my hardwiring is, I'm rejection sensitive, so I get my software firefighter that comes in to in reaction to that. And there's also the whole area of PDA, which I don't want to say that it's pathological, but there's different words, but about demand avoidance. It's a way of levelling up. It's a way of power imbalances being sorted. So I'm not talking about that in this talk, even though I've just talked about it. I'm talking about Martha Sweezy's, these parts that are protecting you from blame and shame. And so in my funky diagram that created with my stick figures that help me, because I like stick figures and I like seeing things visually. Act 1 and 2, bad things happened when you're a kid. So our society shames kids. That's what we've been brought up to do, and we tell them, oh, you're so stupid, or you're such a bad kid, or you're and it could be verbal, but it could also be neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse. It's telling the child that they're not worth it, that they're worthless. And so Act 1 and 2 is an injury, a bad thing happens, and Act 2 is the child is accepting that. So that's behind a curtain. That happens, yes, it might happen now, but it happened years and years ago for most of us. And then this sort of curtain goes across because you get these amazing parts that either come up forward thinking, like an inner critic that will shame you first and make you behave so that you know, it's always trying to improve you, or you know, the wonderful anticipatory scouts that will be constantly looking out and in to improve you, so you become perfect, or you fit into a social situation so that you don't feel shame. Those are the managers. But what we're talking about today is a firefighter, which is in reaction to a nervous system. And I've done another funky diagram on my website, but just look up polyvagal. There's a whole load down there. Of, you know, my nervous system is activated because of something that's just happened, like we did in the room just then. Someone said something or done something, my nervous system's gone haywire, or my hardwire's gone haywire, and I then have a firefighter part that either Act 6, the rescue team makes me come in and feel better. I numb out. I go and get some ice cream, or go and buy a bottle of wine. So that's the rescue team. Or Martha Sweezy talks about the worry and mutiny comes up. And the worry and mutiny is, there we go, where are we? These are the ones, and I don't know if you found this in your system, so we'll discuss afterwards. These distract, they deflect from shame, they focus outwards. It's not me that's bad, it's you that's bad. I'm sorry, I'm not pointing. It's you're bad, it's not me. These parts diminish other people in comparison, and they help me reboot my self-esteem. They make me feel better because, well, I'm seeing some nodding already. It's like, if it's you that's the issue, then actually I'm all faultless, and, you know, and so I don't have to feel bad. And also, if you're externally criticizing someone, in the moment, it gets them to behave. So you sort of control your external environment. So these parts think they have some control over the external environment, and they get other people to sort of go quiet, or so they think. Sometimes. And sometimes they're active, rebellious, and disinhibited. So just checking in, we did a meditation about this, but later, if you just check in what these parts are doing, you know, how does that, when you've met these parts, and when these parts have been let loose into the world, the question is, how does that work for you? How does that tend to work for these parts when they shame another? Is your experience that the other person goes, oh yeah, no, I really agree? So there's a classic thing that parts don't get what they want. It's they might have done in the first time, and you know, certainly as a child, you might have behaved when someone shamed you. But of course, there's going to be parts that come up and react in the other. So it may get immediate obedience, but it mostly doesn't get you what you want. It tends to bring up a negative reaction in the other. They might get their worry and mutiny coming up because their nervous system has been activated, so that you then get a war, which is grim. Or you'll get, what often happens, people will go very, very quiet, numb, stop listening, shut down, look away, which is exactly what you don't want. You know, these parts are sort of wanting a connection maybe, or wanting something, but so what do? Martha Sweezy talks about there's an exit, and the exit is self-compassion. And so we have an innate antidote to shame and burden parts, which is connection with self. So always, you know, all these talks has always come back to self, come back to you, come back to connection with yourself. Compassion for the parts that have shamed others, compassion for the parts that are trying really hard, and loving them up. And then we can help the hurt child that's underneath. So, invitation for there's two routes, and the outcome is the same. Meeting the parts of you inside with your wonderful self. So Martha Sweezy, in her book, suggests you, or was it in one of her talks, I forget, puts on an oxygen mask and invite the protector part to come and just hang behind you, and just, you know, can you just hang fire? I know they've just shamed you and you want to shame them back, but shaming part, could you just give me a tiny little, you know, come and relax just here, just a tiny little bit, don't go away, but can I just go and be with the one that's hurting? Ouch. And so you go and you just take a few breaths, take a pause, and be with the one that's hurt. Yeah, I know that really hurt. They did something in it and it hurt. Yeah, I'm really with you. I see you. It's okay. And then come back to the one that wants to go and shame and blame. And, you know, and maybe having just spent that couple of minutes, there's a pause. You get the choice. Oh, look, there's the night sea. And you might be able to respond in a different way, rather than just going, rah, which I could do. You know, and you're asking these parts, could we try, you know, could you, I'm here, I'm grown up, I'm 53, you might be a different age, but, don't use that. You know, could you just, you know, it's all right, I'm here, I'm going to be with this one that's hurting, we can work this out together. Would you, you know, leap of faith, trust me, and we'll be able to do maybe something different. And then you come back and you have a talk with them, and you can maybe speak for them. Which leads me to route 2, which is, there is an amazing, you know, IFS is fabulous, but Tony Herbine Blank has this woman who does IFS, is a couples therapist. She interweaved IFS with IFIO, which is intimacy from the inside out. And she has created something really beautiful, and I love it. So where is it? Sorry, here we go. Yes, couples therapy. So invitation to do the pause, like I suggested. Pay attention to your body. What just happened there? Ow, someone hurt. My nervous system is activated and I'm feeling like fighting. This is sympathetic activation. I'm feeling like fighting. I'm feeling like going back. Recognise that this is a part, you know, you're paying attention to your body. You're doing your U-turn. When you point your fingers out at someone, there are 3 coming back. And, you know, can you recognise that this is a blaming and shaming part? I want to go rah back at you. My nervous system is activated. I want to have a go at you. And maybe you could just dialogue with that part. Maybe you could spend just a couple of minutes going, you know, what, like we did, what's its hopes for you? What's its fears? What would happen if you didn't go rah back at someone? And you just, you know, what would happen? And, you know, maybe in a minute we can talk about what would happen. This part is anxious, maybe, that you're going to feel hurt, or you're going to, well, you are going to feel hurt, but you're going to feel shame, or you're going to feel really bad. What does it need from you? And then you can speak for the part, not from the part, to your partner or to your child or to your whoever it is, your boss or whatever. And you can ask for the partner to, you know, or the person to have a conversation, and you can speak in a different way. So it's a It's just a slight one's. I mean, I guess they're both the same, aren't they? But it's having those two ideas in your head of choice of which I could do.